Hello and welcome to Development Reimagine's Decolonizing Development video series. My name is Hui Chen and I'm working as a research and coordination analyst at Development Reimagine. In this series, we seek to provide an insight into what does it mean to decolonize development, what result will this have, what does change look like, and how do we in all parts of the world, whatever racial, gender, disciplinary, social, and other background drive change. We have seen that development, health, and humanitarian organizations of various sizes are reflecting, becoming more transparent about these issues and recognizing that they need rebalancing. But what's next? And how do we change a buzzword into real, tangible action? If you don't already know, Development Reimagined is a leading independent and African-led international development consultancy with our headquarters in China and with offices in Kenya and the UK. Our mission is to provide new ideas and solutions to deal with the complexities of global poverty and climate change. And it's a mission our diverse team really strive for every day. For this session, I'm very excited to have our distinguished guest, Danny Gotto, who will share some insights on one of the key themes of what it means to decolonize development, localization. But first, what do we at Development Reimagined mean by localization? Well, we define localization in the development sector as the agency building process, where international humanitarian actors shift the power and responsibilities of development and humanitarian aid efforts towards local and national actors. Danny Gotto is a perfect person to help us do that. Danny is an experienced medical and public health practitioner, as well as a nonprofit leader in driving NGO innovations. He is a physician and public health specialist from Uganda, and he heads the NGO Innovations for Development located in Uganda, which is championing disruptive solutions to development. So, he works on a wide range of issues, and decolonization is part of his core work, wherein he believes in taking back the power that people really deserve to have, and seeing that they are part and parcel of the development. And that means Danny Gotto is the perfect person to help us understand how to localize and why this really matters to our practice.
Hi, Danny. So firstly, thank you very much for taking the time to have the discussion with us today. So can you share some examples of localization that you worked in practice?
The part of course, the localization, as you ably put it, is that we want to make our people part of the change they desire, not teleported solutions from out. So one of the things that we're doing that is coming out creatively is re-engineering participation that is informed by the people themselves, but also by people's knowledge, people's way of being and understanding their psychology of development. So we've established, working with the community, we've established a local coalition accelerator. A local coalition accelerator is some sort of a collective of civil society, government institutions, ordinary people, marginalized people who come together and form an agenda of development and work collectively to measure the change they desire, to set parameters and benchmarks. And they are organized in a way that they are a loose coalition that development partners come to work with. So if you're a donor or a development partner who wants to implement in a particular locality where they are, you must anchor your investment in that coalition. If it is money that you are bringing, you put it in there and they apply or get access to the money from the coalition. So what it has done is that it had lessened the competitive Western ideologies of NGOs and civil society competing amongst themselves to access resources. And that is the trick of divide and rule that the development partners tend to do. They issue out a call and then you all apply competitively. But here, the solutions are theorized together, benchmarks are set, and then money is anchored into that coalition and all of us speak based on our capacities and needs to take back to our communities to implement. So that is a creative mechanism of localization that needs to be supported by all development actors. It is organic, it is community driven, and it is local. within the communities that development must be achieved.
So just as you said, there are many actors that is involved, and the sort of coordination between the different actors that are involved will be very crucial in the implementation of localization. So just building on this, so how do you think? So you think how can the local actors and communities push for accountability, like given the power imbalances between the donors, implementers, and the beneficiaries?
First of all, communities must set their ideals of what they want, how they want it, and when they want it, and be assertive about it. All right? So any foreign actor or development practitioner who comes into them must be clear. They must be clear with the details of what they want. Two, we must tell our stories, because one of the biggest challenges that has been used to undermine our initiatives sometimes is that there is no evidence of success having been achieved from our efforts, because we're not telling our stories enough. So if we tell our stories and we're able to demonstrate that our way works, the others have no way but to accept. Then three, there has to be our efforts to create strong institutions that serve as, the guardians to all those that come to work with us. For instance, if it is the local authority, the governance systems must be clear. They must be have articulated the frameworks and principles through which others come to engage with us. Because sometimes we've been played because in some settings, there are no strong institutions and systematic mechanisms through which foreigners or other people coming from outside which can create checks and balances. Like some, foreign NGO comes into Africa, they've designed, I don't want to mention countries, but they've designed a program from a given capital. And they have no context whatsoever of the reality on the ground, but they bring it and they start implementing. There is no mechanism or ways that they will be asked to account, asked to explain. Why? Because the institutions and structures in place are not strong, or they are not up to speed with creating the right checks and balances. But then also, this is very critical to me and relates to the work that we're doing. As Africans, I must be honest, we have to believe in our way. We have to believe it's more metaphysical, it's beyond the practical bit, but it is mindset, it is self-belief, self-worth, so that other people, that's one of the things that we learned from the Chinese philosophies. Yes, many years of China struggling, they never stopped believing in who they are, who they were. The confidence helped them to insulate themselves, and others had to co-opt their way and accept their beingness as Chinese. So I think we are in Africa must also get that. And it creates sort of like a barrier to resist exploitation and any forms of abuse that might happen when those who come from outside come to you.
Thanks very much. Yeah, just as you mentioned, so like the localization will also be like a shift in the mindset that inspire people's confidence and readiness for change, and also for the community to set their ideals and tell their stories, and also the kind of institutional building, and also to understand the diversity of the different contexts in the local communities. What do you think about how do we ensure that the global North organization supplement and not supplant the local ideas and agency?
Okay. One of the things that I think which we are trying to do is we've created established structures and systems in place. And those structures and systems have created sort of like a framework for which we want all actors coming in to play, how they should play. Now, it is more like a mandate that they must operate based on our realities. Because what has been happening in the last decades, many years of development practice, foreigners come with their conceived ideas about us. And if you, for instance, their conceived ideas about us, if you go to any capital in the world and ask anybody about Africa, they have a story which is not the true story about who we are. And it is a story that has been propagated by the media. You know, even if you go to Beijing and ask about Africa, there is a narrative about Africa that has played. So that narrative plays in the mindset of people who think, theorize, and practice development. And that is the international NGOs, the international development practitioners, and development banks, and so on and so forth. So, but if they come to us and they find our well-defined plan, our well-defined strategies, and say, this is who we want, this is what we want, this is how we want it, they have to be nudged to operate like that, like our way. Then also setting benchmarks to measure that, you know, which we demand them to be accountable to. You know, it could be, for instance, if somebody is investing, is going, or he has the intention to invest in our countries, we've set up the parameters to which they have to adhere to. And then we regularly monitor them, we regularly measure their performance to those standards. Then that in a way will encourage them to be able to live to our standards. Short of that, we will be very bold and open to tell them, sorry, your money is not wanted, move out. Because Africa is not here for the taking by any person. All people that come to work with us to move forward must understand who we are, what we are, and what informs of that which we are, so that they facilitate our growth based on our interpretation and understanding of where we want to grow and evolve. So that, in a way, is going to encourage them. But also, it's related to what I shared earlier. It is, what do they know about us? We need to tell our stories. We need to highlight the successes. We need to highlight, demonstrate that our way is supreme and superior and it works. So in a way, they will be convinced that as they're intending to localize, they are not looking at it from a sense of doubt that we don't know their stories. Because what is happening? Somebody from a university in Europe or America, a professor sits and theorizes, writes a paper about, let's say, financing development in Africa. And he says this model of loan making works. And then he puts their benchmarks on how the loan is going to be advanced to Africa. Then a foreign corporation comes to be channeled, the foreign bank comes to be through which money is channeled. Then another corporation comes to extract whichever investment that they do. And the Africans are simply participating, not actually are spectators. A foreign company comes, takes the minerals, processing is done outside. So they ferry all the wealth to whichever destination they want to. So Africa now remains a dumping ground, or gets a very little portion of wealth from their natural wealth. And that is the reason why we've remained not benefiting from the resources that we have, because we're being paid, peanuts, if I could use that. So how do we move forward there is being bold, being strong and assertive, creating the right systems and mechanisms, but also being confident of our solutions and our ideals, that they are worthy enough for others to borrow or to move by or with, moving forward to develop ourselves.
It's a very inspirational idea. Since you covered a lot, so I would just ask one quick question to wrap our session today. So if you would pick this one word to summarize what localization means to you, so what would it be and why?
Okay, to me, localization means people first, people at the center, people that are having the lead experience of the problem you want to solve, people who are the owners of the solution that you want to propagate, long should be gone the days where the thinking, theorization, implementation, and whatever you call it, is by an outsider. Because when you look at development or the lack of it, it's about the people. The people must be active participants, not spectators in whatever initiative anybody wants to anchor in our societies. And then two, in that framing of the people, there has to be inherent belief that people have an understanding of their needs. People have an understanding of the future they desire. This notion of outsiders looking at people as less, therefore they should be there to be developed, they should be there to be supported and facilitated. No, people must be at the center of the solutions. Localization must create a mechanism and platform for people to share their solutions and ideas, and people to participate in the implementation, measurement of that change, and celebrating the glory of change for everyone. So at the end of it all, it's people first.
It's very interesting. In China, we also have this philosophy for development as of human-centered, which in Chinese we call 以人为本. Thanks very much, Danny, for joining us today for the discussion. So we definitely gained a lot of food for the thought, and we really greatly appreciate you taking the time to speak with us today.
Amazing. Thank you so much. Thank you for having me.
Dear watchers, thanks for staying with us. Maybe you can promote or implement the ideas that Danny shared with us here in your organization, from community-driven development to believing and telling our own stories and keeping people at the center when it comes to localization. So, see you again in our next video series.